Hello everybody and welcome to another guide of the MHSden Patreon. I am super sorry for the late posting of this guide. Unfortunately, I couldn't really do much about it. I ordered like 6 copies of this model and like one of them is getting gifted to me and it was sent from Canada. Like literally a million of these copies are being shipped to me. I have not bought Indomitus because I have no use for it, so I only wanted this guy and the Judicar and I bought them separately. And man, it took me forever to get them. None of them has still arrived. The only one copy I have is this one, and it was borrowed to me by a guy from the local game workshop, which I will always be grateful for. And I have to give it back once I'm done painting it. Not this model. I have to give it back once I get another copy in the mail. This model, once painted, will be given away on my Twitch channel. I don't know if you follow my Twitch, but if you do, check it out, because I do giveaways every month. And the models, the wargaming models you see me paint in display quality here are always being given away on my Twitch. You know, that's pretty neat. But yes, let's get started. So, I have the model separated into two. I have the dude on the right and the base on the left. The dude on the right can be black because it's going to be mostly non-metallic metal, so I don't really need a zenithal highlighting to be happening on him. It's pretty black, it's fine. I can progress with the highlighting myself. The base though, I primed gray and then I airbrushed a yellowish color, a very bright canary yellow color on top. The reason why I did that is because you guys chose for this dude to be a salamander, and because it's a salamander, there has to be some fire somewhere. Like, it's just my way of saying it. Salamanders need fire. So what I did is get the base ready for some lava fiery effect, so that it can complement better the salamander dude. So we're gonna start from the base, and the reason why we're starting from this is that so you, as a viewer, can perceive the OSL effect painted on the dude, which is gonna be very subtle though. I don't want my Patreon to turn into OSL the Patreon. It's gonna be a very subtle thing. We're gonna be working mostly on other things. But I still want a little bit of it. And by having the source of the light present already on the model, you'll be able to understand it as I place the lights. It will make sense to you. While if I instead just paint the OSL without having any source, it might require a bit more thought process to figure it out that that's an OSL. It might be more difficult to understand. So I want to do this. And let's get started, because I already wasted more than enough time talking. So I'm gonna get myself a very strong white, Chimera white, a red, Chimera red, and an orange, Chimera orange. Those three colors are super powerful, super good. I love using them. They are super vibrant. The best colors for these kind of work. When you need super pushy colors, you want to use Chimera. That's literally what they're made for strength and power in your painting. So I'm getting a white, an orange, and a red. Alright, so I'm also gonna be getting a black. Vallejo model color black. It's my favorite black, you know this by now. I use it all the time. It's always important to set up your palette with blacks and whites, and then all the colors you might need. So let's start from the base. I'm gonna get this started very, very quickly. What I'm gonna be doing is get my white and very thickly actually apply it in the center part of the base. Why am I going thickly? Because the base itself has a little bit of a texture to it, which suggests a ground. So if my thick paint fills in some of this texture, I'm actually not against it, right? Because I would like this to look more like a liquid and less like a textured thing. So we're gonna be slapping some white in here, okay? Now with the white placed, I'm gonna be going into my orange, thin it a bit this time, and I'm gonna kind of wash it in a few areas. Mostly the sides of the base. Why the sides? Because the light is being casted from the OSL, and it's going to be hitting the sides of the base with this orangey color. So every rock we have could use a bit of orange in it, in its sides. Don't worry about this gap, I'm gonna be filling it after I'm done with the model with some milliput. Okay, with our orange blocked in, we can now block in the black of the stone slab, just to get rid of all of these yellow, which is so garish to look at, right? So let's just base coat all of the top of the rocks in a black, like so. Very simply, the black is gonna cover super well over a yellow. I'm going to avoid the sides as much as I can. Okay, we're done with the base coat. Now we can work a bit more on the fiery effect, and then we can get ourselves a nice base. I'm gonna be using game color gold amarillo, gold yellow. I'm going to mix it with our orange to make a very warm yellow, like this. And I'm going to thin it and wash it into the base pretty much, like so. Covering the white, covering the yellow, covering everything. I don't want this lava to be too bright. It has to be basing material after all. So we can keep it a bit more subtle. Just glaze it in to tint the colors. Not to cover, just to tint. Okay. Now, we have too much orange saturation happening on the sides of the base. So the best thing to fix it would be to mix ourselves a bit of a brownish orange, adding some black to it, and thinning it, of course. We can then work it into the edges and just again glazing it in. Doing this will normalize the source light a bit more, because if the color of the object, the original object, will be black, as this rock is, it wouldn't be reflecting light so loudly. Even if it's very close to a lava OSL, it's still gonna reflect light a bit more darkly. That's important to understand what color is the material you're painting and what texture is the material made of. Rock doesn't really reflect light too much. It does, yes, but not so much so that it becomes so bright, almost as bright as the source, right? Light loses a lot of power when it reflects off of rock. So because of that, we can just glaze this color in over the black and over the orange to blend them in. Okay, all of a sudden it's making a lot more sense. I'm going to be mixing myself a very dark gray for our Necron friend. And let's block him in. I'm going to be painting this color in the in the areas facing the top, so to speak, because I already know there's going to be a bit of orange reflecting off of most of it. So if you think it's simpler to base coat the model and then apply the OSL, you can do it. I feel like I can make both meet in the middle easily without having to worry too much about base coating it entirely. I can see the OSL already in my mind's eye, right? So I can make it work as it is. Bit of quick basing. What I'm looking for right now is very simply a base coat for the non-metallic, which is dark enough so that it can act as a shadow color, so that I can blend the OSL into this color very easily in a moment when you see it. I like starting from dark colors when I know there's going to be a lot of OSL involved, because it makes it a lot easier for me to blend the two together. As you know, uh, OSL only really works when it's happening in shadow. So you need to have a shadow for the OSL to happen. And in this case, if we keep the Necron fairly dark, we're going to be able to use this darkness as if it was a shadow, so we can build up the orangish tones on top of it very, very easily. Just gonna get rid of this yellow from any area facing up. You can see that the base is already looking like lava now, it just needs refinement. But the effect is already there. It's very simple, very quick and very easy, very nice. Alright. Okay. We can now go back, and I'm gonna be wearing my glasses for this. We can now go back to our orange with a bit of black in it and blocking the first highlight for the OSL. This is a non-metallic metal, which means that reflects light more sharply than a rock would, which means that if we keep this color in the rock, we're going to be having this color as a shadow here, but it will turn into a more bright, vivid highlight after it. But for now, let's just block in the highlight of the OSL. I'm just quickly fixing some areas of the base where our previous glazes weren't really efficient. Okay. I'm keeping the color fairly thin because orange doesn't really have much coverage anyway, so going thick will only get you chalkiness and very little coverage anyway. But keeping it thin makes it blend a bit with the gray in a more natural kind of way. I'm okay doing more than one layer here. can see how it's already looking highlighted. Now we just need to make it look metallic. We interpreted the volumes correctly. Now we render, which is something that is very important about mini painting. That rendering, it's something that very few people speak about when you talk about mini painting. Very few of them do, and it's so important. So rendering is a technique, not really a technique, but it's like a theoretical thing that you do in art, okay? 2D artist, every artist does it. We do it too. When we paint non-metallic, we're rendering. When we're painting a skin tone, we are rendering. Everything we paint is a render, if you try hard enough. And so how does rendering work? When you interpret the volumes, which is what I'm doing here, you know, highlighting and shading based on on the geometry of the object and the light source, that's volume, okay? And that's a very important thing of painting, as well as value, of course. Once you've done all of these things and you've done them properly, what you can look into is rendering, which is giving the idea that what you're painting has a texture. And by texture, I don't mean noise or weathering. I just mean that it's a material. Every material is rendered differently. A skin tone is gonna be very smooth, and in like depending on the size, but like on big sizes, a skin tone will have lots of little dots because of surface scattering. For example, a nose will usually be a bit more red in the area around the tip because the light hits it and it highlights the, since it's made of cartilage, light hitting a nose will illuminate the blood vessels inside of it, and it will scatter through the skin tone, creating a reddish tint all over the nose because of the subsurface scattering of light through the texture, the render of a skin. A metallic will have strong highlights, very specifically done. You can follow the non-metallic guide I did. So what we're doing here is working into the rendering aspect of it. So we are blocking in our first highlight, our non-metallic highlight, which is very brown right now, but don't worry, we're gonna be fixing it and making it look very shiny in a moment. The real difficult part is reaching around the model here, more than executing the paint job. Like it's a matter of application of paint more than a technical prowess. See, light is coming from the bottom, sorta. So I am highlighting the bottom of all of these little holes he has in his chest. Okay, I think we are good. For now, at least. So let's work on the highlights. I'm gonna be adding some of the white to this mix, which is gonna turn it into a very brown color. So I'm going back to the orange and adding some of it to it. And with this mix, we can block in our OSL highlights. If you feel like the color you're getting is too orange, you can either, sorry, too brown, you can either add more orange to it, or you can just wait until the end to do an orange glaze, which is what I'm doing here. I'm okay just working with values right now. I don't care much about colors. I'm just using colors that suggest the original color. So working through oranges. I know this is very brown, but again, I don't mind. As long as I have value, everything will be fine because I can always glaze. an orange on top to get it to be more orangish. Maybe I should sell my Patreon like many other do, creating catchphrases that make it look like you know more than any other painter, and I could be like, oh, join Demetrius Den, learn about rendering, you know, because nobody talks about it, but it's a very important this aspect of mini painting. Okay, okay, more white. We can add a touch of yellow to this way. Okay. Alright. Now we can blend these two together, and I'm going to be doing that with a very orangish color, so I'm gonna be adding a lot of orange to our white, creating a good orange tone that can blend the two nicely. I'm just glazing it on. Onto the whitish tone. Starting from the brownish tone. And this is going to blend both, because the orange will look orangier when it goes over the white, and a lot less orangier when it goes over the brown, creating a good, interesting change of tone, and a blend, of course. You can skip this stage, I mean the sketching with the white stage, if you're okay taking a lot of time getting the orange to base coat. I am not really happy with just getting an orange to base coat over a dark gray. It takes forever every time. So I would rather just skip it by painting the whitish color and then glaze an orange on top like I'm doing here. It is a lot faster for me. Okay, now we can get our yellow, add some white to it, mix it in. I want a more yellowish tone. Okay. And we can do another highlight. Okay. Before we keep going with the OSL, I want to get rid of the grayish look of the dude himself, because it is a bit annoying to have it here. So all of the areas that are not being currently highlighted by the OSL can get highlighted by a normal light source, which would be a very simple highlight done with white added to our base coat gray. I'm looking for a rough non-metallic because this guy just died. It's melting in a fire after a fight, and it's a Necron that spent thousands of years in a coffin, so I don't expect him to be super smooth and very chrome looking. I expect him to be more like a brushed iron kinda Necron. You can see now that it's making a lot more sense now that we rendered also the other side of the Necron. While we were rendering only the OSL area, it looked awful, and now that we have just a little bit of an highlighting happening on the dude himself, it's a lot better, lot better. So I'm gonna be adding some more black to this color, or you can create a mix between this color and the base coat if you have the base coat still available. I do not. I entirely mixed over it. And with this tone, we can sort of blend uh, with a with the consistency of a thin layer. We can place this color on the separation between our base coat and our highlight. Again, I'm not particularly interested in blending perfectly. This is gonna look better if it's not blended, because of the fact that this guy is an Acron, and we already established that we don't expect him to be super smooth and clean in his armor. This middle tone between our highlight and our base coat can become a bit of a secondary highlight in some of the areas that are not catching a lot of light, but we still wouldn't want to leave just base coated, right? Okay. And with this done, we can do one more highlight. Don't need to make too much of an effort into getting this highlight to be big or convoluted. This is basing material. We don't want to attract too much attention on it. There's a full marine that goes on top. So keep the highlights small when you're doing non-metallic on a base. I don't mean not highlight. I mean highlight as far as pure white if you want, but keep the size of the highlights very, very small. Otherwise, it will steal the show. So I'm getting myself a whitish yellow. I mixed a little bit of the gold yellow to white, and I'm going to be using this color to do the final highlights. Trying to keep the highlights as small as I can. We want this guy to look dramatic. We don't want him to look cartoonish. We want the light to be only when it needs to be. And we also know that this is basically basing material, okay? This model is the triumph of a space marine over their enemy. It's not a very cool Necron and a marine next to it. So never forget who the protagonist is in your composition and give them more attention than you would give to other things present in it. And again, by attention, I just mean size of the highlights. You can keep the highlights small. This is looking already metallic, right? I don't have to push this any more than I did. With a bit more white added to this, we can do the edge lights now to close these Necron dangers. Okay. I think our Necron boy is good. Only thing I would do is give a bit of a more vibrant yellow glaze to the non-metallic years in the OSL areas, of course. Just a little bit of yellow to get him closer to the look of the base. We might also want to get some more white involved and push these highlights a little bit more. Because it is still a metallic object that's reflecting a lot of light going at it. So we do want this OSL area to be bright. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm liking that. Now we can go back to our yellow glaze on top. Never, I mean, never is not a good thing to say, but I attempt to never paint yellow straight up on a model. Yellow has no coverage. It is chalky as heck if you attempt to get that coverage. It's a lot better to just go very bright with a gray and then glaze on the colors. I think it's way better than just, going insane, just attempting to base coat the yellow. With this said, I want to do one more glaze onto the base with this orangish stone, the one we used earlier. Okay. Now we can work on the base itself. So for the upper part of the base, I'm just gonna be adding some white to our black, just a little bit. Create ourselves a gray, and kind of block it in like very, very simply like this. While that dries, we can work on the highlights of the orangish part. So you remember our orange with black, we can add some white to it, maybe even some yellow. And we can use this color too. No, I want more orange in this. Okay. And we can use this color to edge a light. Actually, feel like this could be a little bit brighter. Okay, we can use this color to edge a light all of the edges that are being currently highlighted by our OSL. I'm using a very grayish orange because again the base is black. And black has to do something with these colors. You can't just ignore the original color of the object when you're doing an OSL and expect it to look natural. It's always a mix of the two, like hitting the light hitting the object as a color, and that color is interacting with the color of the original object, and they mingle together and they create something. For example, a, a yellow object like a banana underneath a purple light will look very, very, very brown because of color theory. Trying to keep these azurites a bit textured. I don't want clean lines. Again, it's a rock. It's gonna have micro textures in it that are not sculpted but are easily imaginable. Don't really want any cleanliness in this. Okay. I have added a bit of white and yellow to create a bit of a gradient in these azure lights. Some can be brighter, other can be stronger. Just to give a more natural, moving sense of color to this thing. Okay. And for the non-OSL areas, we can just simply add a bit more white to our gray and get these color blocked in. Okay. Last thing we have to do, which is gonna make a massive difference on this model, is the following. Do I have a bit of putty to use? Let me see if I can find it. Looks like I do. I can move this model. We can block in the base on some putty. And I have to get rid of the yellow from the sides, because that's creating a lot of noise that we don't want to see on our model. Okay, I think the effect is really good. I'm liking it a lot. So we can call it for now. Maybe we can refine it once I finish the model, to just once I have a full picture. But for now, I'm very happy with this base. So I will see you guys in the next guide when we start our dude, the guy that goes on top of it. See you in the next video. Thank you so much.